So you are at the February Family to Family Network Salt Lake chapter. Mandy Kent and I are the co-chairs. The Family to Family Network is a statewide parent support network. It's all run by volunteers, and both Mandy and I are parents of persons with disabilities who are either on the waiting list. So our purpose is to help people who are either on the waiting list or receiving services. I just as a personal note, I believe that people who participate in support groups manage the stress better, since we're talking about stress tonight. We offer information and referrals, support through local meetings. So we do this pretty much year round, every month. And last month we did some advocacy about ILs, and so that's it. We're thrilled to have you, and we're thrilled to have Julia give a presentation on coping with stress.
Awesome. So I just put in the chat what an IL is. Those of us who live and breathe it every day. It's an independent living center. That was a great conversation we had last month, and you can find more about that. If you look up independent living centers, it is not a place where people live, but they learn about how to be independent. So the other thing is we would love to have your name in the chat to see who is here. And tonight, I would also love to know and what type of music they like or that you like. Music seems to be a topic for me tonight, so that would be something that I would love to hear about with you as we get going. So, and that would be awesome as we get going. So this picture we have on the screen to get going is something that it really, man, it stresses me out, but some of us have looked like that, and perhaps you are one who have looked like this. And as you take a little bit of a longer look at that, let me introduce myself. My name is Julia. I work with the Utah Parent Center as a parent consultant with the Family to Family Network. So I've been involved with the Family to Family Network for almost 26 years and have worked with the Parent Center in this capacity for the past 2 years. So for the previous years before that, I was a volunteer. So part of those years, 22 of those years, I was doing what Kathy and Mandy are doing, which was great. I agree with what Kathy was saying about this is how we get through some of our stressors and some of our tricky times, but also some of our really great times is finding and are doing it. So that's a bit of my background with the Utah Parent Center. So we're going to go into some of these pieces, and let's see, there we go. Now my slides are moving. So how do you know if you're a caregiver? Because we're going to talk about caregiver stress. And how do we know that? If you do any of these things, this is how we know we're a caregiver. Now, I've talked to some families recently. They're not especially thrilled with this title of caregiver. And I'm listening to more of what some families are saying. And if you're a parent of a younger child, or this is part of who you are, sometimes this is a tricky word, caregiving. But if you do some of these things, you could consider or think about your role as a caregiver, right? So do you help somebody with those first things? Do you assist with medication or managing medication? Do you provide financial help? Do you shop or cook or help feed somebody? Do you arrange for outside help or provide transportation? So again, this is an interesting thing to be thinking about if you have some thoughts, you can always put things in the chat room, in the chat box there, and just unmute yourself along the way, because we want this to be interactive. We have a nice small group here. Others may join us throughout, but we'd like to have this be interactive. So understanding if you are a caregiver, some of these things could be in place. And again, for young children through adulthood, because as Kathy said, we're talking sometimes with families who have children and youth who qualify for or are on the waiting list or receiving services through DSPD or the Division of Services for People with Disabilities. And then being a caregiver could look a little bit like this. Now, this is kind of what I think when I think about stress. I'm just a little stressed right now. Just turn around and leave quietly and no one will get hurt. Sometimes this is what it could feel like. Now, when our son was younger, there were times when I would just be really happy if I could use the bathroom without fingers coming under the door or something being slid right under the door. That seemed to be the one space. And recently I saw a friend of mine, she's got 4 young children under the age of 7. And there she was using the bathroom, and then 3 of her 4 kids were sitting in the bathroom with her, just kind of hanging out. They all had books. They were all just hanging out. And she didn't even have that. The fingers weren't even coming under the door. They just were hanging out with her even while she was in the bathroom. So this may feel a little similar to what some of you are experiencing as well. So I appreciate those of you who have added your information there in the chat. And the fact that, we are all caregivers. Thank you for that information. A couple of you have messaged me directly, and I agree about the music components. So if you can feel a little bit like this, sometimes it felt like this picture, right? This is how we sometimes go. Teeth chattering, hair white out. So let's talk about some things, what it kind of looks like for some of us when we're going through some of this, what some people have considered caregiver burnout. And this may be what some of you have felt like, and some of us have felt like as well going through this. We're not going to go through each of these, but take a moment and see if any of this feels similar to what you have felt like. And maybe some of this or other things have come up for you as well for the burnout piece of it. Now that can be really overwhelming. It can be challenging, because what do we do next, right? Especially if you are on the DSPD waiting list, and that's a topic that happens at its own time. We can talk about that if you need to, one-on-one, or I can give you some information about that as well. But is there anything on this list that anyone would like to share about or be like consideration for why you're here tonight? Is there something specific that you'd like more to bring into this conversation at this point? Something stand out to you for tonight? If not, this is a lot to think about. And we're going to come away with some tools tonight, some things to consider about helping when we are feeling that level of stress. So if you, oh yeah,
So
Abby.
a lot of our things that we deal with the caregivers who obviously feel this, and then sometimes when I have a 5-hour session with a client and trying to run programs and stuff and do behavior therapy, I can totally feel some of these things as well.
That was kind of, I could kind of hear that a little bit, but it sounded like there were things were overwhelming. Is that right?
No, I work with autistic kids. And as I work with autistic kids, we do behavior therapy. So a lot of the things that we do, the caregivers can feel the burnout and the stress. And after I'm with a client for like 5 hours, I can kind of feel some of these things as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot going on, right, with families. Right. Thank you. Mandy, did you have something as well?
Just going to say, as a parent and as a professional, I have felt all of these things at different times.
Yeah. Right. It's knowing that we can feel these things. All of us have felt these things at one point. Thank you for that. And then knowing what we can do next and how do we do with what we're feeling for ourselves and for somebody else. That's a really big piece. So let's go into this next step and see what we can do, because there's a lot of things going on for this that I want to talk about first. So I love this face. Oh, the face on this little boy, because none of us like this. But look at that face. This is how I feel at times when I'm going through things. And part of going through some of this level of stress is sometimes, and for families, we're dealing with stages and levels and moments of grief. And when we're talking about grief, there's levels of grief that happen within all sorts of times of life for an individual, for the family, for extended family. And here are some of those. Now, depending on who you talk with, there's other parts of this at different times. It could be when you're experiencing a new diagnosis. It could be when you're experiencing a new realization that something is going to happen differently or not happen for a young child or an older individual. And this may be part of why the stressors become more enhanced or stick around for people at times. But I love that face, because this is exactly how parts of us feel like we just don't want to, but he's getting into that. Look, he's actually doing it. He's not happy at all, but he is going into that pumpkin. I feel the very same way when I'm actually going into a pumpkin, which is why I get to choose not to do them anymore. I know it's good to be somebody who gets to decide what I'm going to do. Getting into pumpkins is not what I do anymore. So again, these are stages and moments that may be a part of these stressors that some families and individuals are experiencing. Something to keep in mind. Sometimes we forget that. There's a lot of things happening behind our stressors and moments that all of us are going through. Whoop. Good old computer. So this is what some of us do. I love this one. My doctor told me to avoid any. So I am a great fan of avoidance. I think there are times when we step away for a moment, and then there are times that we avoid past the time for me that has been healthy. So there are stress management strategies that help us identify the sources of stress. And then there are times that these strategies are not working for us. So it may sound easy, like not opening this bill, but some of these sources are not actually helpful and others are. So we're going to look at some of these strategies that hopefully are going to be helpful as we go about the rest of our time here tonight. And maybe like me, a strategy is helpful for a small period of time, and then you realize something else needs to come along and go help you get to the next step. So there are a number of ways we can help identify and then continue working on what we're experiencing. So we're going to talk about 7 stress management strategies and think about them. And one of them or a part of one of them may be helpful or doable for you. So when we've done this with a few other families, I've had some really great reactions and some very strong reactions about the appropriateness or the availability for individuals. So remember that it's not a prescription. We're not saying this is a shopping list. Think about what might be good for you and what might not be. These are some ideas to help with. And I'd love to hear some other ideas from what has worked with others as well as we go along. Because it doesn't always work not to open the bill. Some things happen after that. All right, here we go. So creating a stress journal. Now look at this picture. This is a young man. Let's say, I think he's about 6 or 7 here. His reaction to something he did not like that day was to get the markers and draw all over himself. That's one way to react to something we don't like. It was his reaction to stress that day, but he doesn't look very happy with himself at this time, right? So here's another way we can look at it. So creating a stress journal, writing down what has caused the stress, even making a guess if you're not sure, how it made you feel, both physically and emotionally, how you acted in response, and what you did to make yourself feel better. That last one for me can become more intense and take some time because I don't always know how I feel emotionally and physically, and it may take me some time to write it out. But this creating a stress journal sometimes comes in pictures, it sometimes comes in a different color, it sometimes comes in a different type of outcome. But this is one to think about. So it can help you identify regular stressors in your life. Maybe it's around when the garbage has to go out and you think somebody should be able to help you, like the teenager in the house that is not sure that that's a great idea because sleeping in is a better idea, but that is the stressor every week. Can then help you figure out strategies to help manage or create an idea to help with that stressor. This is one idea. And we get a picture of this awesome young child here who found a way to deal with his stress for this day. He's a really cool kid. Any thoughts on this one? I'm looking at my chat as well, if you'd like to put anything in there. Okay, let's go on to the next one then. Now this one, number 2, avoid unnecessary stress, always makes me pause and be like, well, if I could avoid my unnecessary stress, then it wouldn't be there in the beginning. Let's take a look at this list. So paring down your to-do list. My to-do list at one point was a full sheet of legal size paper. And then I pared it down to, oh, I have one here. A small sheet. This is just a small piece of paper. It is not legal size. And then I wrote smaller to get more on that to-do list. I think I didn't get the point, but paring down your to-do list. Learn how to say no. Take control of your environment. Avoid people who stress you out and avoid hot topic buttons. Okay, any thoughts on this one? unnecessary stress. If it were this easy, would
I
we
have
all
a
be
thought.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah.
Anyway, I love this quote that I found on Facebook. It says, say no to the good so you can say yes to the great. And I've been saying no a lot more. And I like to write, and so I like to paint. And so by saying no to some things, it gives me more times to write, and then also taking help. Like
Mm.
we get respite care and using our hours, that really helps a lot. And then sometimes just like my mom's a big stressor for me sometimes, but I am also like I have to help do groceries with her and stuff and take her to the doctor. But I've learned how to set limits with her. Like I'll take you shopping twice a week, or I can't do Wednesdays because it's my art class. And but yeah, but it's really hard when you have a autistic teenager and then both aging parents at the same time.
Yeah, yeah. I like that idea. And the quote is awesome. Thank you so much for that.
Thanks.
That's really great. Yeah, learning to say no. And to go with that, I've also heard that no is a complete sentence. Like we don't always have to give this whole reason. So thank you for that. That was great. So let's go on to number 3, altering the situation. So this is a complex one because you'll see this young boy here in his Halloween costume that was built around his wheelchair. And here's some of these things: expressing your feelings instead of bottling them up. So like you were just talking about, Sarah, talking with your mom, saying, I can take you to here, but not on Wednesday, because that's when I have another obligation, because that's what I've chosen, right? You have this class you're doing. So expressing your feelings, communicating your concerns is really important. So that's what you can do within your situation. You have someone in your house with autism. That's not something you can alter, but you can alter when you're reaching out and doing something for somebody else within your schedule. That's a really great thing that you've shared with us. Being willing to compromise, being more assertive. Sarah's just given these examples for us. Recognize the difference between caring and doing. Your examples from before have carried us right into this one. So again, some families are saying, well, we can't alter what is happening in our home, but we can do these things, which is part of what we can become able to do and practice doing to reduce some of our stress. It's really good. And thank you for your example that tied right into this. That was awesome. Any other thoughts on this one?
I don't really understand the bottom one that says recognizing the difference between caring and doing.
Okay, so anybody have thoughts on that one they'd like to share before I share an idea?
So for example, like you can care for somebody, like really care for somebody, love them, care how they're doing, but you don't have to also always be doing for them and doing that. So like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like kind of like setting boundaries. Like with my mom, I love my mom, but like saying, I really can't take you to Starbucks today, Mom.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I like that idea. And another one is there a way to help somebody become more independent? So if you have an individual who would really love for you to be the only one who opens their milk, or to be the one that reads the book to them. Is there another way that they can gain some independence? So between caring and doing, right? So there's assistive technology, or there's other ideas that promote their independence, and so that you're not the only one that can do every part. Because if you're the only one, that means that could be adding a level of stress for you to always be available at all times for not only taking your mom to Starbucks, but for completing all of those other activities for
Yeah,
an
and like with
throughout their
Savannah,
entire life. Yeah,
like with
that's another
Savannah.
idea.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go right ahead.
Oh, like with Savannah, I've noticed this year, like, I used to always wash her hair, but then like one day I was like, why don't you try washing your hair? And it's been 6 months now that she's washing her own hair. And I'm like, why don't you make your lunch? And the first time she made it, she was horrible, but now she makes her lunch and she makes her breakfast and her snacks, and she still tries to go back. Like today, she's like, will you make my lunch? And I said, no, I have to get ready too, honey. You have to make it. And so she's a lot more independent now, which I was getting so frustrated. And I made a to-do list for her too. Like I said, check your to-do list before we go to school, because I'm always like, do you have a bra on? Did you take your meds? Did you? And it was just so frustrating. But now I'm like, check your to-do list. And
That's awesome. Yeah. There's so many ways to look at that point, and that's a really expanded view of it. That's great.
thanks.
Awesome. Okay, let's take a look at this next one, because I think there's going to be another point on this one. They kind of are building on each other. So let's see what this next one brings to us. So reframing the problems, looking at the big picture, adjusting your standards, and focus on the positive. Now this one, I've had some really great conversations about with folks. So I'd love to hear some ideas or think about this one as I give some examples for this one. So I'm going to go to the one about adjusting your standards and give an example from a family that I spoke to recently, where what the goal for the family was is that all individuals reach a certain grade point average in the home. And then the individual who has learning disabilities and is on an IEP in the school system was working on their goals, and that expectation in the home was great for high expectations, but causing stressors for most people in the home. So adjusting standards didn't lower the expectation for this individual to continue to reach for their IEP goals and to learn new things and to continue learning. What it did is it helped them to look at what this individual needed to learn in their academics and also for life, with supports and in a fuller range. So they were looking at things from a very full and robust and complete picture for this one individual. So they adjusted what their expectations were, but didn't change it from having high expectations, if that makes sense. So that's one example that I heard recently from a family when they were like, so we still want the best, and including the individual, they still wanted the things that they wanted with their goals in mind. So adapt to the things that are happening right around you. Adapt to the stressor. What are your thoughts on this one? Should we? What are your thoughts? Has anyone done this Mandy just nodded her head. I saw that. It was barely a little, have we done this before?
Yeah. I think I adapt to the stressor every day, depending on what it is. Just sometimes, depending on what's happening in my house, okay, how are we going to adapt to this? I can't change the stressor right now, but what can I change about the situation? How can I adapt to this and make it so that it's something that I can handle or that I can make easier?
Awesome. Yeah. Kathy, yeah.
I think that because I work with students all day teaching independent living skills, and with my own kids, you have to the adjust your standards is when my son learned how to put away his laundry, it didn't look like when I put away his laundry. I mean, I am very much a perfectionist, but it worked. His clothes were still in the drawer, and when he went to get them, he could. I mean, and he had done it himself. So I think that took stress off me because now he could do his own laundry and I didn't have to do it for him. So I think, and maybe he couldn't do maybe your student can't do every part of the task, but how much of it can they do? When they make their own breakfast, can they set their place and get the eggs out or the waffles or whatever it is? So there's lots of things.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Again, I love the example that it's not going to look the same as you would, but he was doing it, right? We have to change that. When I first started doing my laundry as a kid, I wasn't folding a sheet the same way as my mom did, and it was okay, right? She was just happy somebody was doing the laundry as well. That's really an important piece. Thank you. Because this next one we're going to talk about is so important for many of us. Because the stressors that we can do something about often go into this piece. Accept the things you can't change. Don't try to control the uncontrollable. Look for the upside. Oh, and look at that. Look at that picture. Oh my goodness. Look at that picture of those smiles. Look for the upside, share your feelings, and learn to forgive. Now, there is a practice that I'm doing in part of another training that I would love to share with you about learning to forgive at this point. And sometimes the person that we don't forgive is ourselves, right? We will forgive a lot of people. But if we make one mistake, then it's like, we're going to hang on to that and hang on to that and hang on to that. Instead, what we could do is say, okay, I'm going to learn from this. There's a piece I can take, and then I'm going to perhaps try it again another day and learn to forgive ourselves is as big of this because we let our kids learn to try things again. And we go through a lot of, okay, that toothpaste was sure smeared on the bathroom. That was really ineffective. Put in between every piece of tile that time, and we forgive them a lot because they're kids and they're trying, and so are we. So that's something that we can work on as well on this one. Accept the things you can't change and looking into what we can do next. Any other thoughts on this one?
I really love this because in my therapy, it's called radical acceptance.
Mm.
And it means, like my husband and I were going to go away for the weekend, and he hurt his arm, so he can't go. And yes, I have sympathy for him, and yes, I'm sad, but I have to radically accept that we're not going, like, and even with Savannah, like, I worry all the time about her future, and she may not have kids, she may not get married, she may not go to college, but I don't need to worry about that now. I just need to take it day by day.
It's a really great point. Yeah. Yeah. And I appreciate that concept of radical forgiveness. That's a really powerful concept. And then letting it go, right? Learning to forgive and just being done with it. That's really important. Wow. Thank you. Because look at that face on that picture. Oh, if we could remember the faces there for us, that would be awesome. Even when they're teenagers. Ah, the teenagers. Gotta love them. We do. Okay. Adopt a healthy lifestyle. Oh, pizza. There's a reason pizza is on here for most of us. Now, even though those of us who are trying to be healthy, in fact, my husband and I were texting today because there's a recent change in some of my health things going on. My body has decided to send random cramps into my feet just at random times, and we're trying to figure this out. Well, I drink a lot of water every day, so I'm like, hey, I can increase my water, and apparently I need to be eating healthier. Darn it. I really need to be eating healthier, right? I eat okay. Like I'm not a horrible eater, but that picture right there could be me. I do love pizza. I do love it. So we decided today that I need to eat more asparagus and spinach salad. All right. So adopting a healthy lifestyle. Did you hear the sigh that just came from me? Because I am also one who for dinner, I have been known to eat a scoop of peanut butter and a couple M&Ms. I know Mandy's cracking up. She's like, that is not going to work. It's not. It doesn't. It could be why I'm having massive cramps in my feet. She's like nodding. Yeah, get on the game plan here, Cheeks. I know. Okay, other things. Exercising regularly, whatever that means for you. If that is going from where you are now to once a week, then that is great. If it's going from where you are now to running a marathon, I wish you the best. Like whatever that means for you. Reducing caffeine and sugar. Going to try this all together. Avoiding alcohol, cigarettes, and drugs. These are things we can work on. And then getting enough sleep. Everyone, let's just take a breath together and work on that last one. Okay. Now the things with this one, why would we want to be doing this? What would these things do for our stress level? Anybody care to take a gander or a
Caffeine
guess?
increases your heart rate, and so does stress. So it plays a part in like
Yep.
your heart health and things like that.
Yeah. Good. I mean, not good, like, but yeah, we know this answer, right? Why else can I not have peanut butter and M&Ms for my quick dinner between when I come home from work and like I'm tired?
It doesn't have enough nutrition.
Doesn't have enough nutrition. Apparently, my feet are telling a story that I need to be listening to. I did look up asparagus and spinach today. Yeah. That
Your
apparently,
body will tell you a lot of different things if you stop and listen, especially about nutrition.
yes. Yes. Mine is having a great yell fest at me right now. So this is a really important slide. Mandy, I love that she is finding joy right now. She will be sending me an email saying, Julia, do this, and I will listen. Send it my way. Easier said than done, the same as with these other things we've been talking about, because here is the last one. Look at that picture. Oh my gosh, the best pictures ever are on these. Number 7, make time for fun and relaxation. Set aside time, connect with others, do something you enjoy every day, and keep your sense of humor. So even while I know I need to eat something with my M&Ms, did you hear I said with my M&Ms? We have to keep our sense of humor and setting aside relaxation time. And if that includes talking with somebody, it could include doing something like this, that you're hearing new information. If that's what recharges you, then that's important. If it's doing cross stitch, then that's important. It's whatever is important for you. It's whatever you get to do with fingers coming under the doors, or whatever's happening in your house. Again, she's saying thousands of words right there. So I'm going to tell you a little story about this young woman. She's a few years older than this now. This was at a time when she loved these hand dry machines in public restrooms. So part of what brought her joy and relaxation is they would go in for a little car ride, van ride. She had an accessible van, and they would go to like Target or Walmart or wherever the store was and go into the public restroom, and she would put her hand underneath the hand dryer and it would turn on and she would grin. And that brought her so much joy and relaxed her. So they did whatever it was. If we could find something like that for all of us, let's make time for it. The trick is who knows what we like to do these days. I knew what it was when I was 5, and I knew what it was when I was 9, but do I know what it is now? If you know what it is, I would love to hear it. And while you're thinking, here are some ideas. Healthy ways, you'll notice that my favorite thing is not on there. Sometimes I do it after a hike. What are some ways, and what are your ways that you have, that you can do, again, that we just mentioned previously, that you can do something that you enjoy every day? Now, keeping in mind that I know some of you may only have 30 seconds or 3 minutes to do some of these things.
Well, unfortunately, mine used to be drinking a Diet Coke every day. But now I decided this week I'm quitting caffeine and Diet Coke, and because I'm trying to get healthier too. But one thing I do like to do is I like to listen to music, and so I try to do that every day. And I love my art class, and me and Savannah will paint sometimes, and I love to write. So I find that I'm really cranky when I haven't been able to write for like 4 or 5 days. And then I have a cat and a dog that I adore, so, and a husband.
The husband, it's good to remember that.
Yes.
Nice. Good. And those are things you could do in a couple of minutes or in a longer period of time. That's great. That's nice. Anyone else have something to share?
I bought myself a record player at Christmas
Hmm.
and I got some records and I'm going old school. And it's been very relaxing.
Nice. I like that. So I have a couple of things that I have found that if I have 2 to 5 minutes, and I can do it in 2 minutes, and if I have 5 minutes, then that's called bonus. I have been doing these motor breaks, and I got it from when I worked in a school district working with occupational therapists. They used to be very sneaky and create sensory breaks for me, right? They would put me, when I worked in the classroom, they would put me at the sensory table and then put the worst things ever in there, the goop and the gunk and the sticky things. Apparently I needed sensory things, but now I do motor breaks. And so I will do a series of like squats and high knees and wall sits and get my heart pumping for 2 to 5 minutes. And then I can sit back down at my desk. And I do that every 2 hours throughout my workday. It also keeps me warm, which is a bonus when you work in a cold home office or work office. I can do that. My coworkers sometimes go by and do, why is she doing a desk push-up? And I'm like, you should try it. That's what I've been doing. But these other things as well, curl up with a good book. That just turns into a nap for me these days. I have hit the next decade mark. I now go from reading a good book to napping next to a good book. Listening to music is on there. A couple more ideas. I have found if I look out the window, open the blinds, and just look at the sky for a minute, that gives me a way to recharge. There's something about clouds in the sky for me. Blowing bubbles. I usually have bubbles sitting right next to me. Oh, they're way over there. 2 feet away from me are a little thing of bubbles, kids' bubbles. Whatever it is that recharges us, it's finding those things and doing it with the moments we have. That's what we can do. Okay. Any other ideas now that we've been talking for a minute on these? I will be sending out, we have a tool. It's a little spreadsheet that I meant to send out before, but it will be going out to people who registered for this. It's called the Caregiver Matrix. And it gives more details about how you can put down things in different areas when you have 30 seconds or 3 minutes or, oh my goodness, 30 minutes of time to fill or find with some of these ideas that we're talking about tonight. It's called the Caregiver Matrix, and I will send it out to people who registered for tonight. It comes with instructions, but you're also welcome to email if you have additional thoughts on or questions about it. It's a quick reference sheet. So when you're like, hey, I have 30 seconds, what in the world can I do in 30 seconds? You might be surprised what we can do in 30 seconds. Because what we don't want to get to is this. This is not a great stress management kit, especially if it's on a wall. If you put it onto a mattress, perhaps. This is not a great stress management kit. It says to put it on a hard, solid surface. It just seems like we can find a better way, a few more ways. So some more relaxation techniques. Again, when we have 30 seconds today, I was talking with my sister and she was telling me a couple of things that she was working on, and I was telling her a couple of things that I was working on. And nobody knows when I'm doing these things, because one is I do a pose from yoga called mountain pose, where it just looks like I'm standing upright. Nobody knows I'm actually doing something from yoga. Here's a couple other things. Abdominal breathing, some muscle relaxation, visualization, self-hypnosis, meditation. There's music again, stretching, and exercise. So these are additional ideas that we can work on when the time allows us. And some of these things, again, we can be doing these breathing, because all of us need to breathe. It's one of those things. We all get to breathe. There's a specific set of breathing techniques that we can learn about. So if this is something you want to learn about, if you put in abdominal breathing as you're learning about things in a Google search, it will tell you how to do this one. And nobody knows you're doing it. It's great. It's like a secret ninja trait. Has anyone ever tried any of these? I like Mandy's always this lovely smile that she has. We've heard someone talking about music tonight.
I use some different meditation apps. There's actually Calm meditation. I like those. You can use them as you're falling asleep. They have one for sleep. They have ones for anxiety, to increase your exercise, for healthy eating. I found that those are very helpful for me. They're not free, but they tend to do sales where they've been affordable. But I found that they're really helpful.
Thank you.
There's one for procrastination. That's a good one for me.
That's awesome. Thank you. So here's one we'd like to share. It's being a mindful. So is your mind full of activity, or are we being mindful? So that means being in the present, thinking about where we are now. So this is one I've been working on, because in the past when I've been presenting, I've also been thinking about the next 3 that I'm supposed to be preparing for. And now what I'm doing is actually I'm here with everyone who is here and not thinking about the next ones that I'm supposed to be doing, which is much more fun and relaxing and reduces my stress, because I am here and not thinking about the next moments. And it works on reducing those stressors and improves all of those things right there. It's awesome. So we're going to try this one if you'd like. Mindfulness meditation. So if you get to be sitting cross-legged on the floor, my feet would go to sleep if I did that, but we're going to try this one. So sit in a straight back chair, or I like to sit in the front of a chair so my feet are on the floor. I am not that tall where I can sit in the back and have my feet on the floor. So we're going to focus on just our breathing just for a minute. Focus on your breath. Feel the air coming into your nose and out of your mouth. Feel that your belly is rising and falling as you inhale or take the breath in, and exhale or let the breath go out. Become aware of the sounds that are around you, the ideas you're thinking about. So consider each thought or sensation that you feel. Don't judge it, just let it be. So if you're like me, if your mind starts to race, just think about your breathing again. And just think about those things that are happening around you. So sometimes doing that for even those 30 seconds that we just took gets us to remember that we're breathing and we do have breath coming in and out, and that we can focus even for just those few seconds. Again, Mandy did mention there are apps that can help with these things if you'd like to learn more about them, or taking this as far as you would like to go. It's just letting things happen. We don't have to fight these things. There was a time in our house where our son's anxieties were getting really intense for him, which means we were trying to help reduce those anxieties, and the behaviors we were seeing were getting really intense with his anxieties. And at one point, he wasn't able to tell us what he needed. He didn't have expressive language. And so he would just get really confused and not able to even use his sign language or his augmentative communication. He used a couple of devices that helped him tell us what he needed until the anxiety became really confusing for him. And there were times that I needed to step out of his space while he was safe, and all I could do was wait outside of the room where he was. It was a wide open room, but where he couldn't see me, and just breathe in and out. Just breathe. And then I would check in with him and be like, "Are you okay?" And he would tell me if he was or was not, and if he needed more time. And I would step outside of the room, and he could come and get me at any time that he needed help. And I would breathe in and out and do this for probably 15 to 20 seconds at a time, for up to whatever amount of time it took. Just breathing in and out and just being aware of my own breath got us to the point where we could do this next thing. I could invite him to my calm instead of joining his chaos, because when somebody is in a space where the anxiety and the confusion is such, they're not able to, our son wasn't able to understand until he could join my calm. So I needed to keep my calm, which was how I was breathing in and out and keeping my calm instead of going to his level of anxiety, because we both could get there very quickly until we found that I could bring him to my calm if I kept it. So that's part of how, and hopefully what we can help bring each other to, is reducing our stressors to help people come to our calm and trying not to go to their chaos, which is it happens so quickly, right? Happens so quickly. So a couple of other things as we're getting almost ready to complete tonight. Here are a couple of meditation apps. And then I love that Mandy brought up Calm. Is it called Calm, Mandy? Yeah. So that's another one. There's so many options for if you want to learn more about these things, another space and do more of this. Again, I'm going to send you that caregiver matrix that gives some more ideas on how to, have a quick reference. Okay, I've got 30 seconds, I've got 3 minutes. I just need to stand here and let myself breathe and feel this so I can help those around me also. The next really quick conversation and ideas we're going to talk about tonight is how do we manage with family? Oh my goodness. So there's us, and I can learn how to do this, but what do we do with the other people around us? We cannot always control the other people around us. Very seldom can we control the other people that are around us, right? Sometimes folks around us don't want to talk about a child's disability or what is happening. There's sometimes blame between one side of the family or another. Sometimes siblings or grandparents or aunts and uncles don't know what to do, and so they withdraw. Like, how do we do that as well? So some of these factors explain some of the other stressors we're going with. So what part of what we can maybe do is help, again, by example and by what we're showing with the journaling and the other things that we've talked about tonight, is by showing, here's how I'm working on things. Maybe that will also help some of these other relationships that are also very important, and the other things that are happening around us. So, any other thoughts or questions or things you would like to add to this piece of it? If not, here is my contact information. This will be coming out. We will send this information out, the PowerPoint and that caregiver matrix, to those of you who are on tonight, and the few others that we had register tonight. And then any last questions or thoughts or ideas or success stories, or we're all breathing for a minute. I put you into the calm with the breathing. We're all thinking about our breath. Any other thoughts tonight? Any other things to add from anyone?
Just thank you for your guys' time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I really needed this tonight, and thank you so much for your time.
Okay.
Right.
Good night.
Good night.
Again, Julia.